Hello, good afternoon, students and listeners. You are welcome to our discussion on social change, which program is presented by Faculty of Sociology, School of Social Sciences. Well, I am Arvasham from the Faculty of Sociology, SOSs, and I have my colleague here, Dr. T. Kapoor, from the Faculty of Sociology. Well, today both of us will be discussing on a very important and a very general topic which I have just mentioned. It is called social change. There may not be a specific topic in MSO or some other courses of MA specifically mention social change clockwise. But then this topic is very important because this applies to most of the theories and also most of the context that we have discussed in different courses of MA. Apart from MA, we have also in BA courses, which is also called PTP courses, ESO 11 to 16. And we have also one foundation course which is called FHS, Foundation Course in Humanities and Social Sciences, which is in the BA level. There, social change is also one of the main topics of sociology, the sociological topics. So I think this topic is very relevant today for all the various courses that I have mentioned, from foundation course to BA to master's course. So I think anyone who is present here in this program can well use of this. Well, today we had just made some scope of a discussion. We had just noted down a few points so that this could be discussed in this time slot. Well, we will try to begin with the concept and definition of social change. Then we'll try to come to the approaches or the various theories to the understanding of social change. It means the perspectives of various sociologists and the school of thoughts. And then we'll try to come to the factors of social change, the causal factors, how social change are caused by different factors, be it biological, geographical, or technological, and even socio-cultural. Very important. Then we shall try to touch something on the rate of social change, because the rates are not the same for all the social changes. So that we'll try to make some points also if we have time. And if we still have time, then we'll try to touch something on the very, significant thing that would like to look social change vis-a-vis the future. Looking at social change and the future. So these are some of the outlines that we'd like to touch upon. And of course, I think this has covered most of the areas of the topic of social change. Well, now we shall try to first consider the concept and definition of social change. And let me just make a few points on this. And Dr. T. Kapoor will also join us. Well, as an introductory word, I would like to just say that social change is any alteration or, say, modification in a society or in organization, and also its functions and structures also, and the various manifestations, all those changes that has been brought about in the society, in the organization, in the structure and its functions, and also its other collateral, various manifestations is what broadly we can understand as social change. But why is it that sociologists are interested in what we call social change? Now, we might discuss social change as, a term or as a topic, but then let us also try to know something on why sociologists consider this as an important topic. There are so many important, considerations here, but there are three basic points, basic areas that sociologists are most interested. Now, the first thing is that whether social change is good or bad. Now, social change can be good, social change can be bad. Now, it also, depends on the interpretation that one makes. It may be, to some sociologists, it may be good, or to some others, they would say it's bad. But as we go along, we'll try to find out whether really social change is good or bad. That will come in the later part. Then the second question is, there is social change, well, that is acknowledged, that is also seen in some way with the results. We see social change all the time. We agree on that. But what are those factors which had prompted or which has caused this change to occur? So this is one pertinent, basic question that sociologists would like to know or would like to answer. And the third one is also, very important in our lives, again, in social context or socio-cultural context, the question of the impacts that social change can bring about, or the impacts of social change, that takes place. And when we're talking of social change, we're talking about society, something to do with society. If it is not just per se, it has to do with something with society. Even if it is geographical, it has that change or the factors will have to do will have something to do or influence or have relationship with society or the change of society. So these are some of the basic points that sociologists would like to know or would like to engage with. Having said that, now we'll try to know something more of the concepts of this social change. Maybe Chikabu will just add some few words or whatever, and then we can move on to the approaches of social change.
Thank you, Dr. Washram. I think you have very efficiently introduced this subject of social change, and I think I would like to also say a few words about this concept, because it is a very important concept in the study of sociology, and as you very rightly pointed out, it sort of cuts across the various subgroupings in the discipline, and therefore a study of social change and what it is, an understanding of what social change is very important. Now, how do we give an example of what is social change, something which is easy to understand, easy to grasp, and therefore easy to work with in terms of interpretations and analysis? I think one of the important factors about what we can call cultural changes which amount to social change is that they must be significant. If it is a small degree of change, if a population in a town rises from 9,000 to 10,000, maybe it's a small change. But if it rises from 9,000 to 80,000 people, we are now looking at something we call social change, because a difference between marginal changes and changes which are very insignificant, we would call it change. But I think in our lexicon, in the lexicon of the sociologists, a social change has to involve something major in terms of cultural values, in terms of norms, in terms of values, in terms of behaviors, the use of language, the change in customs, the change in rituals, the attitudes of people towards religion, and so on. So, how do we witness this kind of significant change? And sociologists and historians have devised a method by which we can see how social change is occurring over time, because social change implies time. It does not happen overnight. The manifestations may happen overnight. The manifestations of a revolution perhaps may happen overnight, but the road to that revolution is a day-to-day affair, and therefore social change is a matter of time. It takes time for social change to take place. Now, Vasham ji has just mentioned that we would move on to a little bit of the analysis of the approaches, and I think one of the facts about social change is that changes occur across the board in the cultural and social sphere, and not in only some pockets. For instance, if the custom of sati is abolished in one belt, it would be questionable whether it is social change. But if the custom of or the abhorrent custom of sati, I think we should say, is abolished all over the country, we are thinking in terms of social change. So it is a general concept, and it has a great deal of cultural width and depth. The whole of the culture has to go significant shifts before we can talk in terms of social change, and we can also talk in terms of areas where the social change is not occurring that well or that frequently, and these can be labeled as areas which are lagging behind or areas which need to be further strengthened. So now we go on to the approaches. I'll just introduce one of the approaches, and then Vasham will further clarify or introduce some other approaches. One of the most famous approaches towards social change is that of Karl Marx, the German economist and sociologist and philosopher, and journalist also. He said that social change takes place because there is a dialectical relationship between the way things are produced and the people who produce them. Ways meaning the factory production, the mode of production, and the people who produce them meaning the workers. Now, in this schema of social change, it starts with dialectical forces working at the primitive communism level. A revolution occurs even at the level of primitive communism, because some have more and some have less in terms of, if nothing else, the social capital, the cultural capital. This is different in primitive hordes also, and therefore polarizations can occur, and exploitation which has been taking place within the society, though it may not be very visible in the primitive horde, in the primitive communism, is there, and this leads to the next stage, which is that of feudalism. Here there is the serf and master relationship. The serf is totally dependent upon the master, and the master has all the rights upon the serf, making him do any and every kind of work in the field, outside the field, in the house, farming, driving, mending the house, everything. He's a very poorly paid kind of appurtenance to the production system. There have been cases of serf uprisings in the feudal system, an overthrow there also because of these inherent dialectical contradictions. These are examples of social change. An entire system of way of living, a way of thinking, a way of believing is overthrown, and a new kind of culture comes into place. And this, once again, Karl Marx says this follows the same law of nature once again, that in the capitalist mode of production, which is the most famous one and the one which has exercised a great deal of influence in our recent times, we find that the owner of the means of the production, which is the capitalist, is employing wage labor at very low rates, and therefore there is something called, something very famous called surplus value. He is not giving the wage laborer his full due, and he is selling his product at a certain cost, and out of those profits he is taking an unjustifiably greater proportion of the profits than he should be doing, and this is called exploitation of surplus value. Well, according to Marx, this exploitation and the alienation which it causes, alienation being the fact that the persons involved in the production process are not with it, they have no job satisfaction. It is like pointed out in modern times, a film in which Charlie Chaplin acted and directed. They are just busy turning cogs in the wheel and themselves become cogs in the wheel. And this causes an alienation, and some epochs, as Foucault would put it, have witnessed a great deal of this kind of alienation, and the modern epoch being one of them, where there are many jobs in which the people doing the job are not with it, they are estranged from what they are doing, they are strangers to what they are producing for the market, and they may not be even interested in what that product is. It's just a job for them. Well, this is a very sad situation, and Karl Marx was very against this system of capitalism, and he felt that something better had better evolve before the whole system collapses in one big showdown between the workers and the capitalists. But he said that the classes would start polarizing. The upper classes, or the upper class would polarize in one direction and the proletariat in another direction, and the tensions between them would grow so much due to the exploitation and alienation that there would be an anarchic explosion, and once this settled down, we would have another epoch. A social change would have occurred, and socialism would come in. And here, of course, is the interesting part, that so far as socialism itself is concerned, Marx had some points to make. He said that the inherent contradictions in society would be removed, and there would be plenty so far as everyone is concerned, and the state would take care of most of the production and distribution would be equitable, and therefore socialism was equated with utopianism. These are some examples of how social change occurs according to the theoretical schema of Karl Marx. And Karl Marx left it at socialism, but I think many literary figures, including Aldous Huxley and D.H. Lawrence and B.F. Skinner, have tried to talk about some kind of socialism in their works, in their literary works, trying to define how it would be in a socialist utopia where the state takes care of most of the basic needs, people are free to pursue their creative instincts and to follow what they would like to do, and there are no inherent contradictions between people, there are no blocks. However, these kind of imaginings are yet to be seen in reality, and socialism as it worked out in practice was a far cry from what Karl Marx had actually anticipated, and it proved so problematic that the Soviet bloc, as a matter of fact, broke down because of inherent contradictions in socialism, or rather the kind of socialism which was practiced in terms of the political strategies of the Soviet Union and the Soviet bloc. So these are some of the areas which social change covers, and the concept of social change is useful in understanding all these developments, linear though they are. And I think before I hand it over to Vasham again, I had mentioned that Karl Marx's theory enjoyed a great deal of popularity in the 60s, 70s, 50s, 40s. It just kept on getting more and more popular, and until the point came where Foucault and other postmodernist writers started talking in terms of retrogression rather than just linear progression, or cyclicality, going round and round, going up, going down, going up, going down in terms of progress and then retardation. So this theory has been now challenged because it postulates that society worldwide as a global culture would go from primitive communism to feudalism to capitalism to socialism. Well, this was under the test for quite some time, but it actually didn't really work out. And so the new theorists talk in terms of a non-linear theory of history, a non-linear theory of social change. As Vasham was pointing out, okay, so is social change good or is it bad? Well, according to Marx, social change is always good. But according to the postmodernists, it can be good or it can be bad, or I think it can even be indifferent. It could be making not much difference despite so many cultural variations and indicators changing. So I think Vasham would talk something about the approaches.
Well, taking on what D. Kapoor had said, which he mentioned mainly on the structural approach, mainly taking out from Karl Marx's approach to the understanding of social change and his contribution to sociology in the understanding of social change and its processes. I think that was a very good presentation. I think students should take it to your heart that this is one theory which is even still popular, so that even in sociological texts these things are yet to go a long way still. Well, there are so many perspectives on this also. There are some takers, there are some people who are against this, who do not believe in this approach. Well, just before this, I would like to have discussed one approach which comes even earlier than the approach of structural approach. We shall call it evolutionary approach. Perhaps this is, I think, one of the first theories on the understanding of social change. Well, the tenets of the evolutionary approach to the understanding of social change is that they think changes takes place in the precision, with a direction. It is from lower to higher, from less complex to more complex, from less advanced to that advanced stage. And this is their understanding. But there are also different categories in this also. There are some earlier pioneers who could be clubbed under classical approach. And there are also new evolutionary theorists also on this. For example, Auguste Comte will come under classical evolutionary theory in that group of theorists. So also Herbert Spencer or E.P. Tyler or Morgan and all that. Well, to Auguste Comte, he believes that social change takes place in a linear way from that from which he called theological stage to metaphysical stage, and then to the higher stage which he calls scientific stage. And to Tyler, also it is almost in the same way, that it also maintains certain direction. According to E.P. Tyler, society moves in terms of beliefs. From animism, it begins, and then it goes to polytheism, means multi-belief systems, and then it ends with monotheism. That means believe in one God. So there are stages also, and Herbert Spencer would say, almost in the same, basing on the same principle, from primitive to complex stage. All these things comes under one principle, who believe that it maintains certain direction and only one direction, which is also called unidirection. But then there are also some people who try to revise this, and they are also called neo-evolutionary theorists. And we can mention some of their names, like B. Gordon Childe, the archaeologist turned anthropologist or sociologist. And then we have Julian Stewart and some of them. Now, Gordon Childe would like to divide the stages of social change, the stages of society, into Paleolithic, Neolithic, Bronze Age, and Iron Age. This is what he gives in some archaeological, chronological way, because his background, as we know, is from archaeology. So with his understanding, he divides the kind of stages of the evolution of society into those 4 categories. But then Julian Stewart would like to view the changes in some different way. He wants to believe that he believes in that there is what he calls multilinear way of evolution of human society. He said there could be different directions. It cannot be just one categorized thing or compartmentalized thing that evolves from lower to higher, but there are different directions, from smaller to even larger, from specific to universal, and then it can evolve side by side simultaneously. And there are also some people like Dessalines and Edmund Savage. They try to revise this even new evolution theory by giving specific and general, which they mean that simultaneously it can go. There are specific developments, evolutions, and there are also general evolutions. They exist simultaneously, side by side. So this is something to do with evolutionary theory. But the main point that we should give is that it has a consistent direction of change, of social change. And that is the tenet of the evolutionary theorists. Then we have another approach which is called cyclical approach, or let me just combine with functional and cyclical together. Or like in cyclical approach, Dr. Kapoor also has mentioned a little bit on that, but he discussed more on that structural approach of Karl Marx. So I would just like to add a little bit on this approach as well. Sorokin is one of them, and Pareto, the Italian sociologist, is one of them. They believe that social change takes place in some cyclical way. It is not just one unitary action, but it changes like in a cycle. According to Pareto, he thinks, and according to his experience and his observation of what was happening in the past and what happened during his time, he understood that changes takes place in some cyclical way. And the circulation of elites is one of his well-known contributions to the theory of sociology. He said there is circulation of the elites, the rulers, the aristocrats. He gives two things. To give one example, he gives the foxes and the lion. The foxes are cunning enough. They're not very powerful in a way. But the lions are, as we know, they are very powerful. They are, very aggressive. So they can be likened to even armies or military rule or whatever. We can also see the rule in Pakistan, for example. There is military rule. There are some democratic rules in some other countries. And there are different types of, governings and system of governance. Well, he said, and he thinks that this circulation of elites takes place in a way that likens like the character of lions and foxes. For example, at the first stage, anyone could come. The lions would come and try to rule, or try to capitalize, or be ruler, capture the powers of the government, and in the ruling government by means of power, by means of aggression. But then it does not last long. It goes on for some time, but then somehow these foxes, the politicians, the cunning foxes, the cunning politicians, would try to even muster their strength by even combining with, trying to form alliance, by forming alliance with other smaller parties, and they can come to the government. So by replacing what we call the lions group. But then they also do not last long. After some time it might break, it might disintegrate. And so the lion would try to bounce back again by grasping those powers again and come into the government. And again, the process goes on. The foxes will try to also come back, and they do come back. And it goes on and on. So this is what we call the lions and foxes, the fox and the lions. This is discussed in terms of circulation of elites, maybe even capturing of powers. So this is one example of moving in a cyclical way. But functionalists also believe that there is a social change. Yes, they agree. But there is also something to do with what we call equilibrium. There should be stability. It comes back to stability. There might be changes takes place, well, but then they try to come back to some stable form, and which is, executed by all those nuances in the social system. So this is something to do with functional way of looking at social change. And of course, conflict theory, Dr. Kapoor had also mentioned about this, and even Karl Marx's way of looking at social change is also part of conflict theory. It could be dialectical approach, of Hegel, then to Karl Marx, or, you know, even that structural, that dialectical itself is structural, but then it also speaks of this conflicting situation, and it comes also into conflict theory. And apart from what he said on conflict theory, I would imagine that conflict theory, yes, like what Dikapur said, the Marxist likes very much. It is not only the Marxist, it is also the struggling groups these days. You can see in various parts of the world, those people who are struggling, they're trying to, you know, make their life change in the way they look at, in the way they desire. That is why even social movements are going on. The movement for transformation of society. Now, I did not mention something on the concept of, you know, social change. There is something, one terminology which are quite, you know, related to social change also, which I just mentioned. It is social transformation. Like Karl Marx would like to transform the world, and those struggling groups would like to transform their lives, their way of life. They want to move away or escape from that shackle that bind them, you know. Like the Israelites, for example, if we date back to the, you know, Moses' days, Old Testament of the Bible, Moses tried to, you know, save the Israelites from the rule of the pharaohs. That means the king of Egypt. In Egypt they call it pharaoh for king. So those 420 years, 430 years of captivity of the Israelites in Egypt, it was realized that, you know, one called Moses, which is believed to be God's sent or God-given strength, was with Moses, and he, you know, saved the Israelites from the bondage of the Egyptian kings. So this is one way of transform, because it transformed a lot. They had to move away from Egypt to wilderness. It was a great transformation. Their lives completely changed. They were no more in Egypt. They had to go away, taking some of their belongings. That's all. And you know, what would be their life? Their life had, for good or bad, it changed completely. So this we can include it under the category of transformation. So transformation are, so to say, in a way, radical or in some way abrupt changes. Revolutionary changes brought about by revolution, for example, by throwing a government by the rebels. This will come under revolution, and this also comes under transformation also. Some people would like to just reform a society. It can also come under social, it comes under social change, but then they are different from social transformation again. Some do not believe in just reformation. Reformations are just like a few changes made to the existing system, norms, patterns, whatever. But when people are speaking of transformation, they want to bring almost complete change to the existing system. So these are some of the terms that are quite related, and sometimes they're confusing. Well, now I think we have no more time. In just a few minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, I think Dr. Kapoor will say something on social change in the future without going to the factors of social change. Or from technological, I think you can touch something on this.
Well, I think what you've been saying is very much in tune with what I'd like to mention also, that the future is very much wound up with social transformation. and the transformation of the groups' desires which are struggling. And there are many such groups in this world, in this subcontinent, and the future lies in how these struggles are resolved amicably, hopefully, harmoniously, and to the benefit of all of mankind. And we wish them the best of the future in their peaceful and their honest struggles. But these struggles are struggles of transformation, social transformation, which is an extreme form of social change, and I think that the future is going to witness the resolution of many of these struggles, and this is going to lead to a different kind of society.
Yeah, I do believe that, like Karl Marx, like conflict theories, if there is a change, that is desirable. If there is change, if there is conflict, there is also change, vice versa. No? So I think that in that note we can just say that every theory, every approach has their merits and demerits. We do not go too much on those merits and demerits, but in this very limited time we try to concentrate on the major approaches and the major tenets of social change in terms of sociological perspective. And so I think these are some of the areas that we can discuss now. And since we do not have much time on this session, maybe we'll just try to wind up by saying that social change, for good or bad, there is social change in our society that we cannot escape. But how social change are brought about, what factors cause social change, and what are the impacts of social change, these are some of the concerns of sociology. And to that end, we try to let you understand some of those concerns and the tenets of sociology to the understanding of social change. So I think students and listeners might have, grasped something, if not all, of what we have just discussed. And I would like to congratulate all the students who have participated in this. And I would like to thank Dr. D. Kapoor for having joined with this in this discussion, and very provoking and very good presentation rather. And I hope you'll join us again in our next slot or in our next session on other topics of sociology. So for today, we'll wind up with this by saying bye-bye.